Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us for our first of the year quarterly station update webinar. Just a reminder, this webinar is really intended to be a non-technical presentation. We want to provide people who have fuel cell cars or are thinking about getting them an idea of what's going on with the station build out. Everyone is on mute, and you will be throughout the webinar, but you're welcome to ask questions. I'll be answering some of them in the chat box as we go along, and others we'll take at the end of the presentation. We will make this presentation and the recording of it and the complete Q&A available shortly after the webinar. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to our first presenter, Joe Gagliano, who is going to take us through the retail hydrogen fueling network update for the first quarter of the year. And Joe, we are seeing your screen in like the presenter mode that's showing the next slide up, so you may need to change your display view.
Okay, hold on. Should I do it this way?
Do you have two monitors?
I do.
Okay, so you just need to swap what's showing up on your monitors. Just switch those around. So go back to the view that you would, but change the windows.
Yeah, easier said than done. Yeah.
Usually we run the presentation from our screen in West Sacramento, but Joe's running it from his in Southern California today.
Okay. What are you seeing my initial slide now?
Yes, but we're seeing them in PowerPoint editing mode.
Okay. Well, I think we'll have to. This is what we'll have to do then. Sorry.
Okay.
All right. So with that, thank you very much. Love the technical difficulties we always have, but we'll get through this, I think. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Joe Gagliano, and with the Fuel Cell Partnership, and we have a lot of good information to share with you today. We have a little delay. There we go. We do have a good information to share with you today. The network is expanding very nicely. Last year, 2016, we added 25 retail stations to the network. We have, so far in this quarter, we have added one more, so we now have 26 open retail stations throughout California. But in addition to that, as you can see from this graphic on the left, the bar chart from our governor's office, that we have added 16 new stations to the network. Well, not 16 proposed awards for stations to the network, I should say. I'll get into more details in a couple more slides. So with that, so we're looking at, with the addition of these 16 proposed stations, that would bring the full network of funded stations to approximately 65. And if you look in the box below, we're talking about the forecasted estimates for those 65 stations to be built out probably by early 2019, given the time frames that we're working with implementation of these stations. In addition, if you look in the upper right-hand corner here, we have total cumulative fuel cell electric vehicle sales numbers. Right now, we are at over 1,400 vehicles on the road in California. So and these numbers are through the end of February, so we don't have March numbers yet. So we expect a significant number of vehicles to be on the road this year as well. Honda just started selling or leasing their Honda Clarity in the past couple of months, so they're adding to the totals here on the road as well. And in addition, on the lower right-hand side, this kind of pie chart here, this is the estimated number of on-road fuel cell vehicles based on OEM surveys. This information is actually from July of last year, which gives us estimates of about, in 2019, about 13,000 vehicles on the road, and we're expecting somewhere in the neighborhood of about 43,000 vehicles on the road in 2022.
Hey, Joe, it's Chris. Folks are having trouble seeing your screen, so we're going to switch this over to Ben and make Ben the presenter, and so then you're going to have to say to Ben, change slides.
That's fine. That's better.
Okay. Sorry about that, everybody. Now we can see. As soon as Ben shares his screen.
All right, Joe, let me know when you're ready.
Okay, yeah, you can go to the next slide, thanks.
You know, folks
Perfect,
wanted to see those numbers, so if you could please just run back one more time and let's just look to make sure, because it was really hard to see the numbers on the previous, the way that you're showing them. So, and we are going to make these slides available. We will make this all available to everybody after the webinar, too.
Okay.
All right, back to you, Joe.
Okay, so you wanted me to run through the numbers again? Oh.
No, we just needed the picture up for a second.
Oh, okay. All right, good. All right. Yeah, so the most recent retail station that opened is in Riverside here in Southern California, which is, it serves retail, it serves light-duty retail customers, as well as, I think, El Dorado, their buses. There's a fuel cell bus manufacturer down here in Southern California that uses this station as well for their buses. So it's only been open for roughly a week, but they've had some good numbers, good reliability numbers from this, and it's getting used quite a bit. So we're quite pleased with this addition to the network, and it's an ITM power station. There are 8 other stations that are on deck, as you can see here. South Pasadena will probably be open within the next week. I think it's gone through most of its OEM confirmation testing. So we should see that one adding to the network probably in the next week, few days. And in addition, we have seven other stations, both up in Northern California, like Woodside, San Ramon, and Fremont, that will be opening, in addition to other stations down here in Southern California, Ontario, Thousand Oaks, Lawndale, and Torrance. And the Torrance station, which for a long while has been a non-retail station, that's now getting an upgrade to full retail. And the Lawndale station is nearby. So the expectation is that Lawndale will hopefully open pretty soon to handle that Torrance market until the Torrance station comes back online at full retail. You can go to the next slide, Ben. So the new proposed stations that were announced in the GFO 15605 Notice of Proposed Awards included 16 new stations. Most of these stations are up in Northern California. And of these, 8 of the stations awards have gone to First Element Fuel. 7 proposed stations have gone to Shell. And one station is going to Air Liquide, and that is the Santanella station on the I-5. The next steps for these stations in terms of moving into the process of becoming of adding to the network, they have to get Energy Commission business meeting approval, and also they have to the parties have to work through executing a grant agreement, and then we can move forward with these stations. O&M funding will be awarded in a separate notice of proposed awards, so that'll be coming out shortly. And on the right, you can see the stations that were proposed in that list. As I said, most of these are up in the Northern California region. We've got 3 in San Francisco and stations in the East Bay and Berkeley and Walnut Creek and Oakland, with some other stations as well in 2 other stations in Sacramento and a few more down in Southern California. Next slide, please. So this is a map view of the stations. The stations you see here with purple dots, those are the 16 new proposed stations. So here we're looking at the Bay Area in Northern California. And also the inset, you can see the 2 Sacramento stations as well, and the Santanella station on the I-5 connector. Next slide, please. And here we're looking at the several stations that are being added to the Southern California LA region, which includes Irvine and Santa Monica, and also other areas as well, and including San Diego as well. We've got another station that's proposed for San Diego. Next slide, please. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what's going on outside of California. We're usually talking about all the activities that are going on here, but wanted to give people here an idea of what the other markets are in the United States for fuel cell electric vehicles. In the map we see here, the states that are shaded in blue are states outside of California that have adopted the Zero Emission Vehicle Mandate from California, the Air Resources Board ZEV program. And these will be the next markets for introduction of fuel cell vehicles. And there are a total of 10 states that are ZEV states, including California. But as you see here in this, the inset, there are eight of these 10 states actually signed an MOU, which pledged to put 3.3 million ZEVs on the road by 2025. And you can see most of the states are in the Northeast. Next slide, please. In the Northeast, Air Liquide is working with Toyota to put in the initial network of 12 retail hydrogen stations. As you can see from the map here, these stations pretty much cover from the Metro Boston area to the Metro New York area along the I-95 corridor with additional connector stations as well. And the plans are here, or Air Liquide's plans in the Northeast. The first retail station that should be coming online in the Northeast is slated for Hartford. And you can see here some other states as well. With the Metro New York area, you're going to have other stations located in New Jersey and Connecticut, as well as in the Boston area. Next slide, please. And with that, I think we'll turn it over to Ben to talk about the station map and SOSS.
Thanks, Joe. So this is Ben Zong with the California Fuel Cell Partnership. I manage all the digital communications here at the Fuel Cell Partnership. And so, again, Chris mentioned it at the beginning of this call. This call is geared towards drivers or potential drivers. And so the tools I'm going to show in a couple of minutes here, these are tools that are geared for customers or potential customers. And I know that from our last presentation, Honda recently leased or starting to lease their vehicles here in California. So first, welcome to any Honda customers that are on the call. For the folks that have been here before, you've probably seen these tools before. The first is our station map, and the second is our station operational status system. So first, our station map, you can find that on our homepage by going to the stations menu and then our station map link. So this is a location-based tool. It allows you to figure out by putting in the zip code or address, you can find which stations are closest to you. You can also see a list view of all the stations, and to do that, we have a list button here. And again, clicking on that will show you all the stations that are in California. By default, all the retail stations, or I'm sorry, all of the light-duty vehicle stations are displayed. If you want to see bus stations in California, you can also check on the bus checkbox, and that'll show you the bus stations. So I think for a lot of you, you're probably curious about which stations are in development. And so again, you can uncheck the other boxes and see which stations are in commissioning, which ones are in construction, and which ones are in planning. Clicking on the station name, it'll give you a flyout with a lot more information. So there's a lot of static information that's available, so such as address, the fuel pressures that's going to be available at that station, the opening hours, and also a link to their website. For stations that are open retail, we also have our station operational status system that is linked up to the site. So when you click on those stations,
Sorry, our mouse is jumping around a little bit here, so sorry about that, everybody. Okay.
So for our open retail stations, when you click on those stations, it'll tell you the current status of the station, whether it's online, offline, or if it has a limited state. And again, you'll have pictures of the station as well as a customer service number.
Can you scroll just a little bit second there, Ben? A lot of questions are coming in asking about the source of hydrogen at each station. You'll also notice from the station map, go down a little bit, we have that on there for each station. So it shows you the source of the fuel. So if you're curious, that's the place to look, whether it's being delivered hydrogen produced on site from electrolysis of water, and that is usually with solar or wind energy, or if you're having it delivered as a gas, delivered as a liquid.
Earlier, Joe mentioned the NOPA stations or the notice of proposed stations. Those stations will be added to our station map as well. And so we'll be adding that this week. And in the filter here, you'll see a purple dot with retail : proposed, and that will show you all of the stations that have been proposed for award from the California Energy Commission. So next is you can also download a list of all the stations as well as the PDF that Joe put up earlier with the map of the stations in Northern California and Southern California by going to our resources section and then downloads. And again, on that site or on that page, we'll have a list as well as that map that's downloadable. Okay. So next is our station operational status system, or SOSS as we commonly call it. So this is best viewed on a mobile phone. It lets you know whether a station is operating at the moment or if it's if they're doing repairs or whatnot. And so it's a pretty basic list view in alphabetical order. We made a couple of changes to it. If you've seen it before, we made the background a solid blue. I know some customers were a little confused because we had a gradient on the background before, but all the stations are the same. We have an information icon. So what that means basically is that there's additional notes to that station. So when you click on it, it'll give you that more information. So Anaheim, for instance, here, it tells you that it may take up to 10 minutes to fill up at that station. Other information that we put on that note includes maintenance, if the station is being taken offline for an extended period of time, and additional information as well for that particular station. So as Joe mentioned, we have one new station that just came online, and that's the Riverside Station. Those stations are denoted by new. So you'll see a new here. The Riverside Station, it just went offline because we had some connectivity issues earlier this morning. It's related to the internet connection more than anything else, and so we expect that station to be back online fairly soon. After 30 to 60 days, this new will be removed after it's met, or after that station has a record of good performance and it's met a minimum requirement of number of fields. So the next thing I want to show you how to sign up for notifications. If there's a certain station that you're particularly interested in, you can sign up for an account and sign up to receive notifications for either through email or through text message. To do that, you'll scroll to the very bottom, and I'm already actually signed in on this account here, or on this page here, but there will be a sign up link instead of logout. When you click on that, it'll prompt you for a username and an email address. Once you fill out that form, you'll get an email immediately with a link to sign up for the system, and it'll take you to this page here basically. It'll ask you for a password for the first time. And then once you save, it'll take you back to the home page, and you can then go to My Account at the bottom of the page. From here, you get two basic options. Again, you can sort the list by going to the sort station list. So again, if you're in Northern California, like myself, I'm in West Sacramento, so I like to have the West Sacramento station at the very top. And it's just a basic drag, and you can drag that to the very top. And then now when you log in, you'll see that station at the very top. We'll save that. Next feature, which is really cool, is to be able to get notifications when a station goes offline or when it comes back online. And again, to do that, you click on this Manage Subscriptions. This is all mobile friendly, and so you can do this all through your phone. If you want text messages, you can put in your cell phone number here, select who your provider is, and then you can choose to be notified by text message, which is SMS, or by email. Most stations have both H35 and H70 pressure. You can sign up to be notified for just one or the other. And then again, our three different statuses that are available is online, offline, and limited. All right, so with that, Joe.
Don't pick limited.
So with that,
use your tip.
With that, Joe, I'm gonna send it back to you.
Before you go back to Joe, if you could please go back to SOSS.
Yes.
A few questions have come in that's easier to answer right now while you're still showing the screen.
Yes.
And we certainly talk a lot about these questions too, because we are always looking at ways to improve the user interface. For those of you who have not been with us for very long, SOSS that Ben has built really started off life as a different product altogether, and we didn't exactly foresee how people were going to use it. So we're at the point now where we're making some big technical changes to it. You're seeing some little interface changes, but you're not seeing the work that goes on behind the screen. So some of the questions that people are asking, can SOSS show you this, that, and the other? What is the percentage of renewable at each station?
Right. So in general, most stations are 33% renewable. And again, the best place to view that is going to be on our station map, and they'll tell you what the renewable, or how much is renewable at that station.
Where?
I think we may have hidden it for today.
I think so. So we included the percentage of renewable on here as a text field. We're looking at how we can display it as a graphic, and that will be in the next version. So the next one is price of hydrogen.
So at the moment, we're not showing price of hydrogen. As a fuel cell vehicle driver, your automaker is going to provide you with 3 years of free fuel, and so it just doesn't make sense at the moment to show price. But as we move forward, we'll definitely start showing that when it makes sense.
And part of that is because right now, when you have a fuel cell vehicle, you're getting a fueling card. So the fuel is essentially included with your car. And the difference between H35 and H70 that you're showing us there.
Okay. So H70 is those are different pressures that is available. So H70, I think a lot of you are familiar with 10,000 psi. So that's the different pressures that the cars can fill up at.
Okay, I think that was all of them about that for right now.
Okay. I'll also touch on a couple of updates that we're working on for our station operational status system. For Q3 and Q4 of this year, we'll be making some changes to allow this map to be based on geolocation, meaning depending on where you're located, the list will change so that it shows the stations closest to you, and it'll also give you a mileage. It'll tell you how far it is from your current location. We're also working on a couple of other changes to the site as well. And so at the bottom of this page, there's a please contact Ben Zong if you have any technical difficulties. So if you have any suggestions, feel free to shoot me an email and let me know, especially if you're a driver and you find something that would be helpful to you.
I'm going to ask you to show one more thing. If you could show where people can download our weekly station update status list. So in addition to the map and everything we're showing you, we also have a spreadsheet that we update every Friday that you can download, and it gives you a little bit different information.
So if you go to our main website, on the far right, our resources section, there's a downloads page. And then if you scroll down, there's a hydrogen stations list. And so that list there, this shows you in list view all of the hydrogen stations in California.
And if you scroll down a little bit to those that are still in development, you'll see they're separated by color. And that gives you a little bit better idea of what's going on. So you can tell the best information that we have on a weekly basis. Are you pretty close to being done? Is it still pretty far away? And like any construction project, we don't really know exactly when it's going to happen, but we can just sort of give people a status on how things are going.
And then the maps I mentioned earlier that Joe showed, the Northern and Southern California maps, those are right below that station list as well. I also want to touch on one of the stations that is shown on SOSS. So these stations, we list them once they are open and available for customers to use. The Torrance station is listed on the station on this page, even though it's closed. They do have a mobile filler that's available at that site that you can use, but it does have limited performance, and so I would recommend using some of the other stations unless you really needed to use this station.
All right. Now I'll let you go back to your originally scheduled broadcast.
All right, Joe, back to you.
Thanks, Ben. I was going to add that mobile fueler at Torrance, so thank you for doing that. So yeah, just some closing remarks here. Just wanted to reiterate that the network is, the hydrogen fueling network in California is starting to populate key markets, not only here in California, but also starting the development in the Northeast as well. Also, work is starting in California, focusing on fuel cell trucks and the associated fueling stations with those. So you'll be hearing more about that in the coming months as well. As I mentioned earlier, we have over 1,400 fuel cell vehicles on the road right now and expect that to increase considerably. As always, customer experience is a top priority right now with these stations. The station reliability of the stations continues to increase, so as we get real-world experience with new and greater numbers of customers using the stations, the station developers and operators are identifying issues pretty quickly and resolving them pretty quickly, so it's really helping to improve reliability for the customers that come later. So that's good news as well. And we're also in the process of, we're finding the process to get retail stations open. Right now it involves the state, it involves OEMs, the automakers, as well as the station developers. We're looking to ultimately, the goal is to get a third party to help confirm the station operations so that we can start peeling back the involvement of the automakers in commissioning and confirming stations. So that's the long-term goal here. And finally, just wanted to leave you with, we've been talking for a couple of years now about 100 stations. That was just our first goal, our first milestone. As we talked about in this presentation, we're starting to reach that. So now members of the partnership are starting their discussions regarding planning for beyond 500 retail stations in the state. We really want to move to a commercial market and really move towards that transition from government subsidization and grant money building the stations to more of a market pull, as you will. So with that, thank you very much, and I'm sure there are a number of questions that you'd like us to answer for you.
So we do have a number of questions, and I'm sure more are going to come in. And so for the 150 of you who are on the phone, I do my best to keep up with them as they all come kind of pouring in at one time. So starting with the top, we always have some very specific questions about how about a station in this area. So I'm going to be a little bit broad first. How about a station in Las Vegas? We would all love one. And I saw today some legislation that's being introduced in Nevada for them to start doing a study on hydrogen stations in Nevada. We will certainly put every hand out that we can and offer help to Nevada, but the state of California doesn't really have ability to build a station across the state line. So I'm just really pleased to see that there is something going on over there now. I think we all are, because we would all like to drive our cars to Vegas. The other questions, how about plans, Joe, can you speak roughly about, we just got 16 stations awarded. What do we think is going to happen after this award? When would we expect the next one? Are there some other potential funding sources?
Yeah, the CEC issues their GFOs.
That's a grant funding opportunity.
The grant funding opportunity. Sorry, yeah, we're in acronym city here. Probably sometime next year, would be my guess, mid next year. There's no set time frame, but it's usually about 18 months out, give or take.
So currently, all stations that we have been co-funded, with the majority of the funded provided by the California Energy Commission. And it's through a program that also provides funding for every other alternative fuel. That includes battery charging and natural gas and ethanol. So it's a very varied program. But it devotes at least $20 million a year to build at least 100 stations in California. And sometimes that $20 million is combined together. So we just got a grant for $33 million. Are there other opportunities for funding? Potentially. And certainly we heard testimony to the California State Senate yesterday from a variety of people asking them to consider funding more hydrogen stations with Volkswagen settlement money. I don't know where that will go, but we certainly heard a lot of folks from different sectors speak out about that yesterday in the hearing. So that's where our stations are being funded right now. And when we look at plans for a particular area, like how can we expand the South Bay area in Los Angeles or the South Bay in San Francisco, or how can we put more stations in Northern California, we're certainly looking at where the next round of stations after these first 16 should go. But considering the timeline of a construction project, any construction project takes more than a year. So we have a little breathing time before we need to make the next round of decisions. Hope that was clear. I have a bit of a cold and my brain's not on all cylinders today. So we have a question about a couple of the upgrade stations that you might bring up. The first is Harbor City. Harbor City has been offline for a while. Do we expect it to come back?
The Harbor City was operating under a government program that I think is funding lasted for 3 years on that. So Harbor City is now, the funding, the timing is running out on that program. So Harbor City, it's my understanding that the station operator there actually submitted a proposal with his latest grant funding opportunity. And as we saw, it probably didn't, the awards were made to Shell, First Element, and Air Liquide. So the status of that station going forward is kind of uncertain.
How about the Burbank station? Is that going to be available to as a retail station?
Yeah, there was just a press release announcement that Nel Hydrogen is going to be working with Hydrogen Frontier to, I think, upgrade that station as well. So keep your eyes and ears out for that. There should be some movement on that going forward.
And what's the progress on the Chino station, the Chino upgrade?
Yeah, the Chino station is it's uncertain right now. I can't even really give you an estimate on when that might open.
And we have a few folks who must be in the San Ramon area who say that San Ramon station looks like it should be open, but it says Q2. But Q2, I want to remind everybody, is only 2 weeks away. So do you have a better idea of when San Ramon is going to open?
Q2. No, it's getting close. It's getting close.
Okay. The question about the Torrance station, we talked about the Torrance station being upgraded, but is it being upgraded to be retail or upgraded to do something else?
No, upgraded to full retail.
And it'll still have 4 dispensers there?
That's my understanding. I'd have to check on that.
Okay. Ben, this might be a question for you. If you were an owner of a hydrogen station, how do you get to be included with SOSS on SOSS?
So generally, I'm in communications with most of the station developers, and so before they're anywhere close to commissioning their stations, we'll usually have something tested out, and they'll be ready for SOSS. But if you're a private owner and you're not in communication with me already, again, my email address is at the bottom, and they would typically reach out to me, or again, I'm usually browsing through looking for new station developers, and we'll be in communication with them.
And all of the stations that are funded by Energy Commission money are required to be part of SOSS, and Ben works with them early on. And the stations that are being built out on the East Coast by Air Liquide reached out to Ben, and so he's already been working with them to bring them on too. I don't think there's anything like SOSS for any other fuel, and everybody wants to be on it, which I agree. So Joe, this is a question for you, and maybe for Jennifer Hamilton, who is our person who does our safety training, who's sitting in the room as well. As these new cities are getting ready to come online with their stations, what does the Fuel Cell Partnership do to help them? Like, do we do training with the planning departments, the permitting agencies? What do we do to get these things going?
I will defer to my esteemed colleague in Sacramento.
And Jen, you are not sitting near a microphone that's turned on, so you have to speak really loudly.
This is Jennifer. So the partnership has historically done outreach for AHJs, those are authorities having jurisdiction, whether that be a cities group or with the fire department or both. We also do first responder education. That program has expanded to a national program that the DOE and the Pacific Northwest National Lab have hosted, and there is a free downloadable program on a very good resource called h2tools.org. And I recommend, if anyone's interested in any of the safety and codes and standards, to visit that website. So yes, the answer is yes. We do outreach by either small, personal meetings to presentations at meetings like with the fire prevention officers, to invitations from the station developer, attending conferences like NFPA and other fire conferences. So there's a wide variety of outreach that we have done and do.
Okay, so reading through questions again here. Thank you, Jennifer. Joe, can you talk a little bit about the cost of fuel? Everybody is always questioning that, I'm paying $16.49 a kilogram here in West Sacramento. At what point can we expect to see the cost of hydrogen start to decline?
Well, according to a press release from Air Products that came out on March 6th, they are now, they've dropped their pricing at 4 or 5 of their locations to about $10 or just below $10 a kilogram. That includes West LA, Woodland Hills, Fairfax LA, Santa Monica, and then Lawndale when it opens. So I haven't fueled over there in a while, so I haven't confirmed whether they've actually changed the price over there, but that's the intent. And First Element Fuel has been talking, they talked last year that their goal was to get the retail price to around $10 a kilogram pretty soon. So I think that the Air Products announcement and First Element Fuel's understandings are kind of in line. So we're starting to see, we're seeing greater volumes of fuel being dispensed, more vehicles on the road. So this is a natural next step as we see in certain markets the price starting to come down a little bit.
Here's a really easy question. I'm going to jump to this one. What is SOSS? We kept saying SOSS and we never defined it. Oh, acronym soup here.
So SOSS stands for our Station Operational Status System, and it lets customers, it's on m.cascp.org, and it lets customers know when the station is online.
For the new stations, Joe, what can we expect in terms of capacity or redundancy? Were there certain requirements this time around that have been different from the previously funded stations?
Yeah, the GFO, it's my understanding, I'm trying to get a copy here. I think the minimum capacity, daily capacity, was again listed as 180 kilogram station. So that's at a minimum. But some of the stations, I think the Shell stations are, as proposed, are somewhere close to 400 kilograms per day in terms of daily capacity. So we're starting to see bigger stations in the market, and if anyone has talked to First Element or heard them speak, at least their Long Beach station is, I think it's the most used station in their network, and they're starting to see a need for bigger stations beyond 180 kilograms, and that's just with as we've mentioned, 1,400 vehicles on the road. So you're going to start seeing more larger stations as we go forward.
Okay, and a general question too about, as we talked about the timing of the stations, can you explain a little bit about how long it takes to bring a station online, and you've mentioned that we're going to streamline some processes. Maybe, could you talk briefly about what those are?
Yeah, I think First Element has had some really good experience in bringing stations online relatively quickly, and around, I'm trying to look here, I think it's about, you know, just under 24 months, 18 to 24 months with some of their stations, I think is the best, the quickest they've turned their stations around. And again, as we've mentioned on these calls before, there's a lot going in, many steps in the process to get a station online, from proposal to, you know, grant agreement to site control and permitting and planning and things like that. Each jurisdiction is different, and some jurisdictions have really lengthened the process. I know that I think First Element in San Diego, there's been a very lengthy process in San Diego to get some of their station there online. So it depends. I mean, sometimes some stations go into jurisdictions where previous hydrogen stations have been permitted, so there's a familiarity there. A lot of the stations now are going into jurisdictions where they've had no experience with retail hydrogen stations, and so there's a bit of an education process that goes on. But as more and more cities, you know, approve these stations, I think more and more the new cities, you know, and that's part of what Jennifer was talking about in terms of permitting training and AHJ training that the partnership does. We try to get as many local officials in as possible who are getting stations, so that we can kind of identify the resources they need to help smoothly, you know, permit these stations. So it's a long-winded answer, and it depends on the jurisdiction. But I think everybody's learning, and so we should see, you know, the timelines continue to get shorter as as more and more stations come onto the network.
Ben, another question for you, you and me both, because I said don't pick limited, don't pick limited. We didn't explain what limited means on SOSS.
Sure. So typically most stations, when you pull up to a station, fill up, you should be able to get full fill. So a full fill is considered 98% or more. A limited status means that the station has been used multiple times in that hour time period, and so you're going to get, you know, less than 98% fill.
All right, and if it goes into limited, does it stay that way for a long time, or is that just like 10 minutes or something?
Usually it's a pretty short period, and then once they're, it comes back to full capacity, it switches back to a green. That's why Chris was saying don't pick limited, because oftentimes you'll see where a station gets hit 2 or 3 times in a row, and then maybe 15, 20 minutes later it comes back to green, or to an online state.
And a general question, Joe, how long does it take to fuel a fuel cell vehicle?
3 to 5 minutes, and usually when I fuel, it's about, I time it at about 4 minutes to get a full fill. That's usually between 3.5 kilograms to 4 kilograms if I get a 4-minute fill.
Then another question for you on something that we ran through quickly on SOSS. You showed the difference between retail and non-retail other stations. Can you explain what that means and who has access to those non-retail stations?
Sure. In general, retail stations mean that every single automaker, or if you're a customer, you can go to any of those stations. For non-retail stations, that means that there's limited availability depending on which car you're driving. And so typically, your automaker will let you know if you can go to that station.
And so currently, some Hyundai Tucson drivers have access to the non-retail stations. Yes?
Yes, that's correct.
Sorry, I'm answering the question right now. mostly about that you can't hear me because I keep turning my head away to read the screen. Oh, Joe, we've heard about small fuelers like the Millennial Rain and the Simple Fuel tiny refuelers. Do we have any plans on deploying those?
Not yet. I think there still needs some work to be done in coordination with the automakers on the implementation and use of these yet. So they're an intriguing solution, but I think some more work needs to be done. But a lot of companies, a good number of companies are starting to get involved in that. So we should see more and hear more on that in the near future.
Yeah, that's, so I have a couple of questions that folks have asked. First, I mentioned the piece of legislation that we saw being introduced in Nevada, and we'll certainly share a link to that in our meeting notes so that everyone can see it. The second, we've had quite a few people ask us about what we think may change with the Trump administration, and the answer that we get, and it's just too early to know right now. We've seen a lot of proposals, but over the years we've seen lots of proposals, and things in budgets do and don't get ratified. So it's just too soon to tell. The commitment from California, though, does not change. We have some designated piece of legislation that is supporting the introduction of zero-emission vehicles in the state, and some state goals for bringing in zero-emission vehicles that include fuel cells. So we haven't seen that change. What we are starting to see is more interest or additional interest in heavy-duty vehicles like trucks and buses in addition to passenger vehicles, which I see as a good sign. It's a great sign of support from within our state. I'm sorry, I have to read questions again for just a moment. So maybe Ben, you can. Anything else that you wanted to add, Joe, while I read through questions again really quickly?
If not, Joe, I just wanted to add also that we host webinars once a quarter, and so if you have any particular topic you want us to cover on, please let us know. Joe's email is on the screen, but also my email address is on the SOSS homepage, which is again m.cascp.org. And also, you should be getting an email after this webinar is over with my email address on there. You can respond back to that. Later this week, we will be sending out the presentations as well as the recording, and we'll be posting it as a blog on our homepage of our website, which is cascp.org. And so we'll send out an email later this week with a link to that as well.
One last question. We talk a lot about stations on this webinar, but we don't so much talk about the vehicles and what's happening with the vehicles. So for just a quick update on vehicles is that Toyota and Hyundai both have their vehicles available. Hyundai has had for a while and have had for a while. Hyundai is planning on bringing a new model out this year. Honda has just started releasing their clarity in the markets that have stations. I have not heard on how many they're planning to release this year, but I do see more people with them every day. We certainly can tell that by the number of folks that join the Facebook groups for the Mirai owners and the Honda owners. We participate in both of those Facebook groups, and we see new names added every day. Mercedes has mentioned that they'll be bringing out their GLC plug-in fuel cell vehicle at the end of this year or early next year, but they have not stated whether that's in Germany or United States. So we haven't heard any more about that yet. The New York Auto Show is just around the corner, and we usually hear more announcements just prior to the New York Auto Show. Joe did show you the sales numbers, and the sales numbers change every time a new station is open. With a new station, it gives a whole new market. So right now, the automakers have to really pay attention to how many vehicles are fueling at each station, particularly in places where there is only one, because we don't want folks to be getting that limited message all day long or have to be waiting in line at the fueling station. But it's certainly a big balance because you also don't want a station that sits empty with no one using it. So, you know, with only 26 stations only open and 1,400 cars, we have learned a lot, and we will continue to learn as these are deployed. And hosting this webinar and seeing your questions is a big part of feeding into how we improve things for customers. So with that, we are at the end of our hour. I will be typing up all of the questions and answers, even the ones that I've answered privately as we've gone. You'll get a copy of the presentation. We'll send out links to documents that we've spoken of, and we will be setting up a webinar, another webinar in about 3 months from now to hopefully talk about a next bunch of stations and be able to have our first projection dates on the 16 new stations that have been awarded. So thank you all for your time and have a great day.